Welcome to the Explainer. Today we're unpacking a really fascinating and honestly highly original piece of writing by Xu Fang from 2014 titled The Influence of Space on Physiology and Character. We're going to explore a theory that suggests our physical and ideological environments don't just influence our mood for the day, but they fundamentally dictate our entire human existence. It's a unique perspective that bridges biology, geography, and some incredibly deep philosophical concepts about the human soul. So let's dive right in. Have you ever wondered if just packing up and changing your zip code could actually cure your chronic joint pain? Or taking it even a step further, what if it could literally alter your total lifespan or completely rewire your deepest character traits? This text argues that your environment, your space, is the invisible architect of your life. And to understand exactly how this works, we have to start by looking at how nature itself adapts to extremes. Section 1. Nature, Environment, and Lifespan. The author's journey into this whole theory didn't actually start in some dusty library. It began nearly 4,000 meters up in the freezing, incredibly thin air of the Chilean Mountains. Up there, he noticed that the extreme cold basically forces plants into hyperdrive for survival. They managed to germinate, grow, flower, fruit, and hit full maturity in just 1 month. It's wild. The harsher the living conditions, the shorter the growth period. So the environment is quite literally setting the biological clock. Basically, space dictates lifespan. Now, what's really fascinating here is how the author takes that basic biological rule from those freezing mountains and scales it way up to map out a theoretical timeline of human lifespans. According to this framework, different environment worlds yield vastly different lifespans. Down here in the standard human world, we max out at about 100 years, right? But in his proposed spatial dimensions, upgrading your environment extends your life exponentially. We're talking 1,000 years in the 1,000-year world, a whopping 35,000 years in the 10,000-year world. And if you manage to reach what's called the Elysium Celestial Islands continent, well, lifespan becomes practically unlimited. The space you inhabit directly correlates to the actual time you're granted. Section 2. Geography's Impact on Health. Bringing things from those cosmic lifespans back down to the micro level, the author details his own bodily ailments across different regions of China to prove this theory. And the physiological and psychological trade-offs he experienced are, well, they're pretty surprising. When he lived in Yunnan, he suffered from headaches, leg pain, and just a really poor appetite. But then he moved to the dry, windy, sandy regions of Kartal and Gaisar. And guess what? The headaches and leg pain completely vanished. His appetite surged, his legs stayed warm, he slept like a rock. But there was a catch. His skin got really rough, and his personality became noticeably stronger, a bit more abrasive. So then he moves again, this time to the tranquil, beautiful area of Nanha, and the results flip right back. The anxiety vanishes, his skin smooths out, his personality gets way milder, but his legs are freezing cold again. Every single move was physically and mentally reshaping him. Section 3. The Danger of Stagnant Spaces. So, this brings us to the real bridge between physical aches and the author's core thesis. Because if moving changes you so much, what happens when you stop moving? Well, the text warns that staying in one place for too long essentially solidifies your entire being. Let the gravity of this quote sink in for a second. The gentle will remain gentle. Troublemakers will continue to cause trouble. Long-term residency locks in your personality traits. If you just stay put in one environment, sure, the good parts of who you are might stick around, but your negative traits, they're completely prevented from ever improving. You essentially hit a geographic ceiling on your personal growth. You just become stagnant. And this is where it gets really interesting, because the author totally redefines the word illness. Through this specific lens, an illness isn't just, a bodily ache or catching a virus. Illness is defined as a dangerous stagnation of human character. If you never leave your hometown, or you just never change up your daily routine, you suffer from environmental uniformity. You start to presume your tiny little slice of the world is all there is, and that leads directly to personality defects and major mental blind spots. Section 4. Cross-pollinating human ideologies. Now, when we scale this theory back up to the macro level, we see it's not just individuals who suffer from this. This fear of stagnation applies to massive human structures too: nations, political parties, sciences, and religions. There are severe consequences to staying immersed in a single ideological system for too long. Think about it. Just like staying in a freezing climate gives you joint pain, staying inside an ideological echo chamber gives you extremist thoughts. It breeds arrogance, closed-mindedness, and a massive increase in entropy. A singular worldview, cut off from any outside influence, eventually and inevitably leads to ultimate destruction. To combat this ideological entropy, the author proposes a pretty radical solution: the constant and deliberate cross-pollination of contrasting worldviews. Essentially, hybridization is the cure to ideological illness. Embracing wildly new ideas, entirely different perspectives, and unfamiliar lifestyles, that is presented as the absolute only way to achieve holistic health, physically, mentally, psychologically, and spiritually. And to actually achieve this hybridization, the author makes some incredibly sweeping demands. For true health, completely different, and frankly, often opposing groups absolutely must embrace each other's ideas. The text impartially argues that Buddhists have to learn from Muslims, Christians need to learn from atheism, scientists must study religion, and vice versa. It's not about converting anyone, it's entirely about breaking the stagnation. The author states pretty clearly that if these groups refuse to cross-pollinate, they're all going to suffer from severe ailments of consciousness.
Section 5. The 3-year rotation.
So how do we actually implement this constant hybridization in the real world? Well, the author applies this directly to the operational rules of a community called the second home of Lifechanyuan. 3. That is the exact number of years the author requires individuals who are referred to as Lifechanyuan celestials to stay in one branch before they are absolutely mandated to pack up and move to another. It's a literal, built-in mechanism designed to forcefully prevent the illness of stagnation. The mechanics of this continuous rotation strategy are actually pretty straightforward. Step 1, change your living space to alter your physiological inputs. Step 2, change the actual group of people you live with to force ideological hybridization and shatter those echo chambers. And step 3, by constantly disrupting your comfort zone in this way, your consciousness becomes more perfect, your soul purifies, and you ascend to a higher level space of life. It's a profoundly challenging framework, isn't it? It completely upends everything we know about settling down and finding a cozy comfort zone. Because according to this text, comfort is really just another word for stagnation. So I want to leave you with this final thought to consider about your own environment. If you were forced to uproot your life, change your home, change your friends, and completely challenge your worldview every 3 years, who would you eventually become? Would you finally reach your full potential? Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and keep exploring.